what are the economic challenges for the next administration that, well, economic and fiscal challenges that most stand out to you?
Well, thanks, Bob. It's great to be back here. I always love just hopping from one fiscal crisis to the next with you. Um, but certainly as we're staring down the remainder of the calendar year, there are some significant unknowns, right? We don't know what the next administration and the next Congress will look like. But what we do know is that they are going to be faced with some significant fiscal deadlines immediately. First and foremost, we know that the debt limit is going to rear its head again early in the next administration. Right now, the debt limit has been suspended through January 2nd of 2025. But we know that once it is reinstated on that date, Congress will have to come together with the next administration to determine how they are going to raise the debt limit. We're also going to be facing the expiration of trillions of dollars in tax cuts at the end of 2025 that were implemented under former President Trump in 2017 in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. These are provisions that will affect nearly every taxpayer in the United States, as well as the business community. We also know that there is a global tax agreement that will be up for debate in Congress in 2025 as the OECD and G20 countries have worked over the past years kind of forge ahead and find some consensus in the global business community as we deal with global taxation. As you can imagine, congressional Republicans and Democrats are far apart in how we come to compliance with what the OECD has proposed. That's going to be another fiscal deadline that we must face. And then, of course, the insolvency of Social Security and Medicare's trust funds. We will be another year closer to their impending insolvency in the early 2030s. And so the next administration and Congress is going to need to, find their political courage to overcome some of these very significant fiscal deadlines that we know they will have to face in 2025. So, well, maybe 2024 isn't the year of a ton of legislating. We know that 2025, there is going to have to be much of it, and likely, once again, in a time of divided government, a situation where both sides of the aisle are going to have to come together to forge some sort of consensus on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, some of this is hard to can kick. I mean, they like to, but you just talked about some deadlines that are, I mean, they can maybe dissemble a little bit, but when you're talking about the insolvency of trust funds, okay, maybe there are some gimmicks there, but it's going to be hard to. It'll be open and obvious that they are gimmicks, and the tax cuts will expire or not. I mean, if they do nothing, they'll expire. And so, do you think that, given that that those deadlines are going to be hard to gimmick around, do you think there's a possibility that once we get through this next election, they might come together on some of this stuff?
So it's an excellent question. I think that because there are many wild cards, right, on the table. I think that because we know that the debt limit is going to be in play and that the significance of inaction over the debt limit, politically choosing to default on our financial obligations over coming together to raise the debt limit, because that is going to be so central, I think that lawmakers are going to come to the table. Now, of course, we know throughout the past decade, they like to do that at the 11th hour. And they like to conveniently combine all of these deadlines together. So I wouldn't be surprised where, in my crystal ball right now, that we're looking at a situation where Congress implements a few, can kicking mechanisms so that all of these deadlines are compressed into one together. And we're looking at a, similar fiscal cliff like we did at the expiration of the Bush tax cuts when President Obama was dealing with Speaker Boehner at the time with how to overcome, that fiscal calamity. And so I think that we can learn from history and certainly behooves lawmakers now to start their preparations well in advance of what these deadlines will force in 2025. But yes, I think that we're going to see can kicking and gimmicks galore. But at the end of the day, we're going to the only final resolution will have to be some sort of bipartisan consensus that raises the debt limit, addresses, hopefully implements and maintains pro-growth, pro-family tax reform in a way that also doesn't bust the deficit as we're looking, staring down a $34 trillion debt.